Welcome to The Common Good. I'm Robert Reich, and today we will be focusing on last night's wild debate and Trump's latest attacks on the rule of law. Now, last night's Democratic debate was surely the liveliest so far, but in some ways the biggest disappointment, since there was no discussion about Trump's attack on the neutral administration of justice, his latest lies, and the overt and blatant corruption at every level of this administration. What became evident last night was that the two most progressive candidates, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, are light years ahead of the others. In recognizing the dangers in this moment in American history and their boldness in doing something about them, the climate crisis, out-of-control healthcare costs, and widening inequality of income, wealth, and political power. Bloomberg did an awful job. And presumably he pays his political advisors enough that you'd think they would have prepared him for the most obvious questions he was going to get on his record on stop and frisk, redlining, sexual harassment at the workplace, and his attempt to buy the presidency by spending more money than anyone has ever spent on a candidacy in history. But his answers were unbelievably bad. They're silly, puerile, insulting to workers, to women, to people of color. Yet he still has unlimited funds for unlimited advertising, so maybe he figures he doesn't matter. Let's just hope he's wrong. Even though Elizabeth Warren did exceedingly well, at this point it seems likely that the two people who will emerge from the fray to battle in the months of this primary season are Bloomberg and Bernie Sanders. Bloomberg's money gives him raw power. Bernie's indignation, passion, and authenticity give him a different but no less intense power. The two of them also represent the two halves of the Democratic Party. Bloomberg, the corporate Wall Street establishment Democrats. Bernie, the anti-corporate, anti-Wall Street, anti-establishment Democrats. Bloomberg, the multi-billionaire eighth richest person in America who has so much money he isn't even taking contributions. Bernie, who is financing his campaign almost entirely with small donations, millions of them, the largest number of small donations in the history of American politics. Bloomberg, the arch-capitalist. Bernie, the democratic socialist who fits more in the mold and tradition of Franklin D. Roosevelt. The Democratic Party, as it was before the Vietnam War, tore it apart and big money corrupted it. It used to be a coalition of working class, people of color, of laborers, of farmers, of union members, and the poor, of civil rights activists, women, LGBTQ community, and young people. The biggest force in American politics today is anti-establishment fury. That's why I think Bernie or Elizabeth Warren pose the biggest threat to Trump, if either of them were the Democratic candidate, and why I believe Bloomberg would almost guarantee a second term for Trump. But that's enough from me. Let's hear from our perennial millennial, Katie Milne, and from you. Katie, how are you today after that battle last night?
I am good. I'm tired, of course. But yeah, that debate was lively as one word.
It was kind of sizzling, and it was like it really was a circular firing squad. I kept saying, why isn't Trump being attacked? I mean, it was just...
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. But at the same time, Bloomberg is the biggest threat to the Democratic primary right now. And I personally was really happy to see all the candidates, particularly Elizabeth Warren,
came
out, gloves
take him
off.
On? I was amazing.
Yeah.
She has never been as good. That was Elizabeth Warren's finest debate by far.
Definitely.
And if she had shown this stuff earlier in the debates, she might be number one. Now, maybe she'll rebound. I mean, it was strong enough that there is a possibility of a Warren rebound.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing that I loved the most about her, she came out guns blazing right away, and she really got to the central point of this myth about why Bloomberg is suddenly electable. He's not. That's the biggest thing. All of a sudden, he's, in the front. He's a front runner, and people suddenly believe he's the best guy to beat Trump. But if you really look at his record and who he is as a candidate, he is not electable at all. And I think she really hammered home that point.
She did. I mean, he's not only the establishment, and this is an anti-establishment era, and the anti-establishment wave even was the way
Yeah.
that put Trump in. But she really did get him that one little interchange with, can you imagine what Trump would do and what the Republicans would do and how the public would feel about somebody who has a sexual harassment claims against them and the no, the confidential non-disclosure forms and you're not going to even let them disclose. I mean, she was brilliant.
Yeah. And so I want to kind of take what she started to get at, and I really want to hammer that home for everyone who didn't watch the debate. Mike Bloomberg, he was terrible. He was like a dead fish on the stage. I guess billions of dollars can't buy you charisma or personality, but that's beside the point. So I really want to hammer home why he's not electable and also why he would be an absolute disaster for our democracy.
Katie, so you're a Bloomberg
Oh
fan.
yeah, huge fan of Bloomberg.
Well,
Love the guy.
It really does come out.
Yeah, so I think this perfectly sums it up. So this is a quote from David Dayen, writing for the American Prospect. An anti-teachers union, anti-gun, pro-nanny state, pro-Wall Street, pro-stop and frisk, pro-inequality, pro-immigration, pro-surveillance, pro-Iraq war, neoconservative is almost surgically designed to repel practically every American voter on some level.
But it doesn't take account of his money. Now, this is an interesting thing, Katie. He's spent already more money than on ads than Hillary Clinton spent in her entire campaign, right up through the end of the Clinton campaign. I mean, this is a man who there is no limit to the amount of money he is spending, can spend, will spend. And so these bad debate performance and the bill of particulars you have, why should he worry? Why isn't he almost automatically going to be in a brokered convention, certainly?
Well, because eventually he's going to have to start talking to voters. I mean, money can only get you so far. And you saw that last night. Until last night at the debate, he had created this rosy bubble of who he is as a candidate and as a person through all of his ads. His record hadn't faced any scrutiny hardly at all until this past week. And in the debate last night, clearly he didn't want to be there. He viewed the debate more as an obstacle, just to get past it. It's not like he didn't see it as an opportunity to bolster his record.
True.
And as soon as he faced other attacks from candidates, as soon as his record is coming under scrutiny, he withered. I mean, he melted away. And this is the kind of guy
I don't think he wanted to be on the debate stage.
He didn't want to be on the debate stage.
We all thought that the DNC was bending the rules to allow him onto the debate stage. It turns out the DNC was bending the rules, maybe for Biden, but certainly not for Bloomberg.
He did not want to be there.
But he is going to be on other debate stages. But the question remains, and this is an experiment in democracy. We've never seen this much money before. Whether, notwithstanding all of the negatives, notwithstanding his bad debate performance, whether the ads, the blanket, wall-to-wall advertising leading up to not only Super Tuesday, but also leading up to a convention is enough. And I just don't know. That's why I think that Bernie Sanders and Michael Bloomberg are going to be the finalists, because you've got, Bloomberg with all that money and Bernie with all that kind of energy and authenticity and indignation. And if it is the two of them, then what happens to the Democratic Party?
Well, I think, as you said, Bloomberg's counting on a brokered convention. But what I really want to hammer home is the reason that he's been getting he's had this big surge is because people think because of his money, he can beat Trump. But I want to kind of look ahead to the general election if he is the candidate against Trump. I mean, do you think he has any chance of building a coalition that's necessary to take Trump? Because I do not. I mean,
no,
do you think he can win over the white working class?
I don't.
Definitely not.
But again, some people, the people that I know, the Washington insiders who I occasionally, even today, I hate to admit it, do talk with, they say, but don't underestimate money. Money talks. I mean, money is the name of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, but at the same time, I think money can only get you so far. I mean, you saw this last night. As soon as he came under any attacks from other candidates, he just totally melted away. And the question about building this coalition, I mean, his stop and frisk record, that's going to alienate Black voters and people of color. His comments about women, which are absolutely disgusting, that's going to alienate white college educated suburban voters. And then if you thought that Hillary Clinton was too establishment for the white working class, how the hell is an elitist New York billionaire who tried to ban soda going to win over the industrial Midwest? I mean, this whole concept that Mike Bloomberg is suddenly electable is a bunch of bullshit. It is bullshit, and it's a narrative that's been created.
I don't think you feel strongly enough about this.
I don't think so either.
Katie.
Well, it's because Mike Bloomberg represents an existential threat to my generation. He's not even just a shill for the corporate Democratic establishment. He is a moderate Republican who's running in the Democratic primary.
Here, see, I think a lot of people right now think that the old way of viewing politics, there's a left that wants more government, there's a right that wants less government, and then there's the middle. And Bernie Sanders wants too much government, Elizabeth Warren wants too much government. Michael Bloomberg is sort of in the middle, he's a conventional, he's not really a Democrat, not really a Republican, he's sort of in the middle. But let me bust that bubble, because I agree with you, but for slightly different reasons. I think that the real division in the American electorate today is not the old right versus left. I think the real division is democracy versus oligarchy. That is this kind of anti-establishment anxiety and frustration that people have.
Full-on anger.
And anger. Wages have not budged for 40 years. You've got people at the top getting richer and more powerful almost every day. Michael Bloomberg has $61 billion. He's the 8th richest person in America. And I think it's very, very, it would be very short-sighted of Democrats to think that they can put up another oligarch. When Donald Trump is obviously, he pretended during the campaign of 2016 that he was a man of the people, but, let's be clear, he isn't. He was never. And Michael Bloomberg is an oligarch, and Bernie Sanders is somebody who really is out there for the people.
I 100% agree. And I think this is another mistake that Democrats are making by starting to kind of coalesce behind Mike Bloomberg is nominating him would be an absolute godsend for Republicans, right? Because Trump somehow managed to put together this rhetorical strategy and this messaging where he's able to portray himself as a man of the people. Mike Bloomberg absolutely cannot do that. He's the 8th richest person in America. How can he try to pretend that he's for the working class, for the average American?
Well, he certainly didn't come off as a man of the people.
He did not at all. I mean,
night.
You saw that absolute condescension that he had when the question of having workers have more bargaining power and being a part of corporate boards. Did you see that? Absolutely not. Just like he just wrote it off as communism. I mean, if Republicans toss around the word elitist all the time as an attack on Democrats,
Republicans toss around
that's
the word
elitist if I've ever heard it.
Republicans toss around the word socialism in attacking Democrats, but it's the first time I've heard anybody use communism.
Exactly.
The big C. And there was Michael Bloomberg kind of, in effect, accusing the other Democrats of being communists. Yeah. Hello? We can't even find a communist in the world today. But that's a good segue, because I do want to do something that the last night on the debate stage they didn't do, and that is get to Trump.
Yes.
Because there is a serious problem here. Trump is not only basically thumbing his nose at the administration of justice, he's also thumbing his nose at Bill Barr. And if Bill Barr had one shred of decency and self-respect, he would be resigning right now.
Yeah, but he doesn't. So.
Well, he doesn't. I mean, Trump is right now in the midst of pardoning. I mean, he will probably pardon today Roger Stone. Today is Roger Stone's sentencing, and Trump is probably going to pardon Stone.
Yeah, and Trump is live tweeting during Roger Stone's sentencing, talking about how unfair it is. And last night, he retweeted a Tucker Carlson clip, that was advocating for Trump pardoning Stone. So I think this, and he just went on the spree of pardoning these high-profile white-collar criminals like Bernard Kerik and Michael Milken.
And Milken, these people, I mean, talk about capitalism run wild. Milken is the exemplar of the corporate raiders who avoided taxes and, whose whole record was basically playing capitalism and everybody else for chumps. So if you're William Barr, And right now, you've got Trump tweeting as Stone is being sentenced. I mean, and you've already said that to the president. You're making my life difficult. You're making my job impossible. Isn't that the cue to resign?
It has to be, but who knows? I mean, we all thought that one interview he did over the weekend saying he won't be bullied and Trump's tweets make it hard for him to do his job. We all kind of assumed that was just a minimal face-saving gesture. So we'll see if he actually has any backbone behind that sentiment. And if he does resign, he should resign, but I highly doubt it.
Well, I think he should not just resign, but resign in protest. In other words, not just meekly walk out of the Justice Department. He ought to be saying, look, this president is dangerous for the institutions of democracy and justice and equal justice under the law. And nobody should pay their respect or their fealty in any way to this man.
Do you think he's going to do that?
No.
Exactly. There's no chance. Yeah. So so there are actually, with the whole Trump administration, there have been a lot of parallels between him and Nixon, but you were actually in the Justice Department right after Nixon resigned, kind of, experiencing the fallout of how Nixon had corrupted the Justice Department. So I'm curious to know.
I was there in the Lincoln administration as well. It's been
and for George Washington too,
yes,
right?
I'm very old, but yeah, the parallels are very strong with, but obviously Nixon resigned.
Right.
But Nixon corrupted the Justice Department exactly the way Trump is corrupting the Justice Department, and that was really the beginning of the end of Nixon, because you didn't have Fox News. If Nixon had Fox News, Nixon would probably still be president today.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
In other words, he would have taken over. Nixon had the same tendencies, the same authoritarian, fascist tendencies as we see in Trump, but you didn't have Fox News. You didn't have a Republican Party that was so extraordinarily unable and unwilling to stand up to authoritarian, anti-Republican, anti-democratic tendencies.
Yeah. Well, that's it for today.
That's it for today. Thanks. Thank you, Katie. Now, I know many of you are understandably worried, everything from Democrats seemingly in disarray to the latest travesty from the White House. Some people don't even want to watch the news anymore, but let me tell you, we have 9 months to go before the most important election in living memory, and it's critical that we join together to defeat the worst, most dangerous, most corrupt president in history. Don't succumb to helplessness or despair. Make phone calls, knock on doors, register voters, keep your spirits up, and keep dancing.